Hello everybody and welcome to my channel. My name is Saltandpetty and today we're going to be doing a Rubinia Soulsinger Enchantment Deck tech. Let's get started. So what does Rubinia do? For 2 generic mana, a green, a white, and a blue, Rubinia Soulsinger reads, you may choose not to untap Rubinia Soulsinger during your untap step. You can tap to gain control of target creature for as long as you control Rubinia, and she remains tapped, and she's a 2/3. Now, one major thing I want to point out before we even get started with this video is a little bit of rules clarity regarding Rubinia. If we use her activated ability to gain control of something like, let's say, a god, for example, and when it comes over to our board it's no longer a creature, Rubinia will retain control of it. Now that we have that out of the way, let's get started and focus on our ramp. Now, being in Bant, we're going to have access to some of Magic's best ramp offerings. So aside from Commander classics like Sol Ring, Arcane Signet, and Chromatic Lantern, we're going to want to run green staples like Sakura Tribe Elder, Farseek, and Cultivate. Some cards that are specific to our playstyle that will help us ramp are going to be things like Starfield Mystic, Herald of the Pantheon, and Dryad of the Elysian Grove. But in addition, I'm also running a Bounty of the Luxa, which is going to add some card draw alongside our ramp, and Carpet of Flowers, which is a powerful enchantment with a great upside if you're facing a heavy blue meta. With our board state ramped and ready to go, it's time to get into the meat and potatoes of the deck. So let's take a look at some of our win conditions. Our 3 major win conditions in this deck are going to be based around Solemnity, Approach of the Second Sun, and Dasa Deep Dwelling. But all will win us the game in different ways. Let's start with Dasa Deep Dwelling. She's a 4 mana, 1 blue, 3 generic, legendary enchantment creature god with Indestructible who reads, as long as your devotion to blue is less than 5, Dasa is not a creature. At the beginning of your end step, exile up to 1 other target creature you control, then return that card to the battlefield under your control. She also has an added ability which lets you pay 3 generic and a blue to tap another target creature. And with a power and toughness of 6/5, she is quite a beater if we ever manage to get her online. Dasa interacts wonderfully with Rubinia because she returns it under our control. It does not say return the creature under their owner's control. So if we steal a creature with Rubinia and then blink it with Dasa, that creature is ours for, well, until they get removed. Solemnity is a powerhouse enchantment for this deck. For 3 mana, 2 of which is generic, 1 of which is white, the enchantment reads players can't get counters, and counters can't be put on artifacts, creatures, enchantments, or lands. So while this could hose the proliferates and the creature counters that our opponents are using, we want to take Solemnity and push it to its breaking point. To do so, we're going to use cards like Phyrexian Unlife and Delaying Shield. Phyrexian Unlife is a 3 mana enchantment that reads, you don't lose the game for having 0 or less life, and as long as you have 0 or less life, all damage is dealt to you as though its source had Infect. And because we can't get counters, we can't die from Infect, essentially making us unkillable. But if sitting at 0 life is not the ideal situation for you, Delaying Shield will step in to prevent that. For 4 mana, Delaying Shield reads, if you'd be dealt damage, put that many delay counters on Delaying Shield instead. At the beginning of your upkeep, remove all delay counters from Delaying Shield. For each delay counter removed this way, you lose 1 life unless you pay a white and a generic. But because Solemnity says we can't get counters, Delaying Shield will prevent all the damage we're being dealt, and no counters will be placed on it, therefore meaning we won't have to worry about taking any damage. However, eventually, our opponents will find a way to break our unstoppable health, so we're going to break Solemnity even more by adding in a Glenalenja Archmage, a 4 mana 2/2 flying fairy wizard that reads, pay a blue, sacrifice Glenalenja Archmage, and counter target non-creature spell with Persist. Fortunately, because of Solemnity, Glenalenja will die and be brought back with Persist, but no neg1 counter can be placed on it, meaning as long as we have a blue mana, we can counter everything and anything that is not a creature spell, and Glenelenge Archmage will always return. However, if we really want to stop the game from playing, we were going to be running Decree of Silence, an expensive enchantment at 8, 6 generic, 2 blue. Decree of Silence reads, whenever an opponent plays a spell, counter that spell and put a depletion counter on Decree of Silence. If there are 3 or more depletion counters on Decree of Silence, sacrifice it. It also has cycling for 6, which when you cycle Decree of Silence, you may counter target spell. But we're not going to want to counter anything with the cycling, as when we pair Decree of Silence with Solemnity, we have locked our opponents out of the game. They cannot cast spells for the rest of the game, giving us an easy 2-card win. Now, with our last win condition approach of the Second Sun, we're going to be needing to draw some cards. So let's look at the enchantresses and constellation effects we have going on in our deck. So for our card draw effects, we're going to be running the full suite of classic enchantresses, like Misa Enchantress, Argothian Enchantress, Citizen Champion, Satyr Enchanter, and Eidolon of Blossoms, all fantastic key cards for our deck. However, we're also going to be running additional card draw in the form of Sylvan Library, Enchantress's Presence, and Teferi's Ageless Insight. A big interaction that I want to point out is that Teferi's Ageless Insight, while it's not going to initially work on our first draw, anytime we trigger any of our enchantresses, we'll be drawing an additional card. And with Sylvan Library, yes, it works how you think it does. We will draw 5 cards from Sylvan Library instead of 3. A powerful, powerful enchantment from M21 that we are going to abuse to the max. Some additional constellation effects I would like to mention are Sigil of the Empty Throne and the Archon of Sun's Grace. Both of these will fill our board state because our deck is lacking in creatures. But I also wanted to include another new card from M21, Jolroel Moinvouli Recluse, who will fill our board state as us drawing more than 1 card per turn won't be troublesome, and she'll turn our little angels and Pegasus and cats into big scary beaters if we get our engine running. With a powerful card draw engine online, we're likely to see some hate from our opponents, and because we don't have a lot of creatures, we're going to want to run effects like Windborn Muse, Sphere of Safety, and Ghostly Prison to protect us from combat tricks and combat damage. And to protect us from any other sort of effects, we're running things like Leyline of Sanctity and Blessed Sanctuary. You're not going to hit me, and you're not going to target me. And if worse comes to worse, a Clutch Teferi's Protection will always do the trick. Some other powerful effects that we're going to want to run are Heroic Intervention, Privileged Position, Sterling Grove, and Greater Oromancy. All of these will protect our stuff, or each other, or will step in the nick of time. However, we're also going to be running Lightning Greaves and Swiftfoot Boots, as both of these will allow us to protect Rubinia and tap her right away as soon as she comes into play, so we can steal that creature at the nick of time. I also want to give a special shout out to Niambi Esteemed Speaker, a powerful creature that for only 2 mana can flash in, save our Rubinia, and heal us for a nice bit of health. With our Bant goodies, we have access to some of the strongest counterspells in Magic, with Absorb, Dovin's Veto, Fierce Guardianship, Render Silent, and Tail's End. And if something happens to hit the board, we'll take care of it with things like Wrath of God, Swords to Plowshares, Grasp of Fate, Aura of Silence, and Return to Nature. And if we're worried about anything countering one of our good spells, we have Veil of Summer to protect us from that. And since we're in enchantments, the best way to guarantee that our mana is up for all of this is a powerhouse and one of my favorites, Wilderness Reclamation. We'll untap our lands at our end step, making sure we have the mana to spare to deal with those threats. The last thing I would like to touch on is the recursion and tutor effects in our deck. Calyx and Estrid will give us the planeswalker support we're looking for, and tutors like Academy Rector, Idyllic Tutor, and Plea for Guidance will search around in our deck for what we're looking for. And should that nasty board wipe sweep away our enchantments, we have things like Auramancer, Starfields of Nyx, and the almighty and very powerful Replenish to surge the things from the grave and bring us back from the brink of destruction. Alrighty, and that will bring us to the end of my Rubinia Enchantment Deck tech. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Be sure to like this video, let me know what tweaks you would make to the deck, and of course subscribe. And feel free to check out my Twitch, which I will leave linked in the description below. And I will see you guys all in the next video. Bye!